Hello all my fellow gamers and horror film fans, I'm Mike C, and welcome to this very haunted edition of The Chrono Cabin. Back on September 1st, I started watching a horror movie a night, and I've been doing so all the way up until Halloween. We are just about at Halloween now when this video is releasing, and as of Halloween night, I will have watched 60 horror movies. That's right, 60 horror movies.
I watched all the movies with you. Remember?
I'm sorry, Billy, you're right. He's right. He watched all these horror movies with me. And in fact, he was very, very helpful. So thank you, Billy. Yes, and actually, all of the films that we watched are listed below, so you can check them out. Now, the three movies that I want to really focus on in this video are movies that I have seen only for the first time in this horror movie countdown. So a lot of the movies that I watched in this horror movie countdown are some of the ones that I consider classics. I watch them every year, so I've seen them multiple times. The three that I picked are ones that I just saw for the first time in this previous horror movie countdowns. This was actually a hard list to put together because in all of the 59 films I've seen so far, there was a lot of great stuff. I found a lot of great gems and a lot of great movies in this, great horror movies in this list. But these three in particular, they really stuck out to me. So the first one on the list is Elementary, The Blacksmith and the Devil. This is a Spanish film, and it was actually made back in 2017. And I feel like I had not really heard much about this movie. In fact, I have a lot of friends who are horror movie fans that have never heard about this movie either. It is really a dark horror fantasy comedy movie, and it almost reminded me a little bit of Army of Darkness from Sam Raimi, which is one of my favorite films, by the way. I don't want to really compare it so much to that, though. It just reminded me, little parts reminded me of that movie, but honestly, this movie is extremely unique and it's really fantastic. It takes place in Spain in 1835 during the First Carlist War. This was a real period in history, and I didn't know much about the Carlist Wars. I actually had to look them up. Based on seeing this movie, it got me interested enough to read some of the history. But the First Carlist War was a civil war in Spain. It was between two factions, and they were fighting over the succession of the throne. So there's a lot to read about that, and I found some of the history really fascinating. I won't get into too much of it, but it's worth looking up after you watch the movie, or even before the movie, just to give you a little background history. But this movie is steeped in Basque folklore. It's always interesting for me to watch foreign horror movies because you really do learn some of the folklore depending on what regions or what part of the world these horror movies are filmed in, because a lot of horror movies are based on local folklore. And in this case, this movie reminded me a little bit of Orpheus descending into Hades to save a soul. So the overarching theme of this movie, you could say, is kind of that, but really it's about a blacksmith, and he's kind of a mysterious blacksmith that most people fear in town, but the story gets much deeper as you find out more about this blacksmith. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to ruin the movie for you if you haven't seen it. So I would say give it a watch and you will find out all the interesting details of this. But what I do like about this movie is the overall look. The look is just fantastic. I love that fantasy look, and I'm becoming more of a fan of horror fantasy, I think, these days. Just, it's a very dark movie, but it's kind of lighthearted at the same time. So I enjoy the comedy aspects of this movie as well. I would really watch this movie in the native language, so watch it with subtitles, because the actors and actresses in this are great, and you really get pulled into this world that is the Basque region in 1835. And the film is just, overall, the production value is amazing, the music is amazing, and just that look, man, that look is just so good. I can't recommend it enough. Scale of 1 to 5 on the creepy factor. What say the Chrono Cabin? Yeah, 1.5 easily. Again, this isn't really a scary film as much as it is just a really great looking film and a wonderful story. And I wasn't so creeped out by the movie, although there's a few little creepy moments in it, but overall it is just a good, entertaining story, and it is told really well through film, and you really get a sense of this region back in 1835. And actually the Basque region looks really pretty based on this movie. I mean, I almost want to take a trip there. I'd say give this movie a shot if you want something kind of unique, a little bit of a different blend of horror. Just check it out, see what you think. You can stream this on Netflix. The second movie I want to talk about is The Empty Man. Yes, The Empty Man. This came out in 2020. And again, this is another movie that I really did not hear much about until I just saw it recently. And there's probably a couple reasons for that. One, this movie had a very limited release when the pandemic first came out, and so a lot of theaters shut down, so not a lot of people saw this in the theaters to begin with. The second reason is kind of interesting. This was one of Fox's last films before they got acquired by Disney, and when Disney acquired Fox, they deemed this film as not profitable. So nothing really happened with this movie. They didn't really spend any money on advertising for it or anything like that. This movie sadly just kind of fell into the shadows. But let's fix that, because this movie, I gotta say, surprised me. Again, it really stood out to me in all of these movies that I watched. It's kind of a strange movie to watch, because it starts off in an entirely different location than where the actual main body of the movie takes place. So originally, I thought the movie was going to be in this one particular location where you have this group of hikers and these lonely mountains and a harsh environment. And I thought the movie was really going to be centered around there. And it really grabbed me in, just that first 20 minutes of the movie. And then it just kind of jars you, because it immediately goes to the town where this movie actually takes place, or where the main body of this movie takes place. At first, I was thinking to myself, this could be like a Candyman tale, you know? In Candyman, you mention the name 5 times and Candyman appears. In this movie, you do mention the Empty Man a number of times, and then the Empty Man appears. But really, this is by far very, very unique, I think, to the horror genre. It's very different. It is a little bit on the long side, I will tell you that, and it's not a movie where you want to get together with friends and talk through it and just kind of miss parts of the movie, because in this movie, you do really have to kind of stay focused on the story. You really want to pay close attention to the dialogue, which is really interesting dialogue, and the concepts that these characters in the movie talk about are very interesting, so it's worthwhile paying attention. Really, this movie is a simple premise. It's just about an ex-cop that goes in search of a missing girl. But it's way more complex than that, and it really wraps nicely together. But you have to really pay attention through this movie and watch it. Scale of 1 to 5 on the creepy factor. What say the Chrono Cabin algorithm? Yeah, 3.5, and I'd almost say 4. This movie definitely has creepy moments, especially in the beginning. There's a really unsettling image, and you'll know it when you see it. And I'll leave it at this. If you want something kind of different, I would say this is a great movie to watch. It kind of takes you into different avenues that the horror genres, I think, haven't. And there's an ebb and flow to this movie, which I think is just fantastic. Now, if you want to watch it, you can stream it on HBO Max. Now, this last film is, I think, kind of a fun one, but it's got a lot of deep layers to it. I really figured this would be the last movie I would probably talk about on this channel to watch for Halloween or just in general, but this one really surprised me. And that movie is Spontaneous, which came out in 2020. Spontaneous is all about a group of high school students that start spontaneously combusting, and no one knows who's going to be next. Need I say more? Because I feel like that alone should get you to watch it. And when I started watching this movie, I gotta say, like, I didn't really know what to expect, because how much can you know, if you're gonna watch a bunch of students like spontaneously combusting, there has to be like a comedy element to it.
What happened? Caitlin exploded. What? Like a bomb? No, like a balloon?
There's only so many ways you can go with it, but no, I was really surprised. I mean, the movie did start off kind of on the light side. I mean, I laughed. There's definitely laughable moments in this film.
Warlock on the loose.
Kids are literally blowing up, so I mean, that could be a possibility, right?
If you believe in warlocks.
But it quickly goes pretty dark, and it gets a little depressing, actually. I mean, there's a range of emotions in this movie. I actually really enjoyed the characters in this movie. It's a great cast. And overall, just to see where they went with this movie was the most interesting thing to me. It was, it's worth a watch just for that. Again, it's a very unique type of horror movie, and it's not even really in the supernatural realm. I can't even say, like, I would even recommend it for Halloween, but here I am recommending it for Halloween, or even beyond Halloween, because, you know, you could watch this movie any time of year. And I just say, check it out, go in with an open mind, and I think, you know, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Scale of 1 to 5 on the creepy factor. What say the Chrono Cabin on this one? Yeah, it's a 1. It's not scary, although this movie, I think it just has a lot of charm, and it has a lot of sentimental quality to it at times. I mean, it's interesting. It'll take you through a range of emotions. You'll laugh, you'll want to feel like you can cry. Maybe you will cry, who knows. But if you want to give this one a shot, I guarantee it's fun entertainment, and it definitely has something about it. That's something that it's hard to pinpoint, but it was unique enough for me to put it on this list. You can watch this movie on Hulu. And that about wraps it up. But before I go, I gotta share with you the 60th movie that I'll be watching Halloween night, because I'm sure you are dying to know. The movie is Young Frankenstein, 1974, starring Gene Wilder and Cloris Leachman. I cannot say enough about this movie. It's just an old classic. I've seen it probably 100 times over. What more can you say about Gene Wilder and Cloris Leachman? They're two greats. And sometimes, every now and then on a Halloween night, I just like to watch something real classic. And for me, that movie, it's not creepy in any way. It's really funny. And it's just, it's got a lot of memories for me. I'll probably be watching a couple movies on Halloween, but that will be movie number 60 for me, and that will wrap up my Halloween horror movie countdown. But it's been a great one this year. Aside from the movies that I've talked about, I've mentioned some others in some other videos, but really, this has been a great Halloween horror countdown for me. I've seen some great films. So happy Halloween, everyone. Hopefully you're able to find some pumpkins, because I've heard that they've had a shortage of pumpkins this year, believe it or not, because of all the supply chain issues they've been having, and a large crop of pumpkins, I guess, got wiped out this year because of disease, like a fungus that was growing apparently. So hopefully you get your hands on a pumpkin so you can carve it. But if you can't find a pumpkin, I'm sure you will find something that you can carve.
Oh! It's what to say at Halloween! Trick or treat! It's what to say at Halloween! Trick or treat! It's what to say at Halloween!